good to see so many of you again. Butler just holds a special place in my heart. I say that again and again and again, but it is true. And before I forget, my folks say hello. See, I told them, why are you coming? People love you when they love me. Why aren't you coming? They love to see you. And they said to say hello, and they probably will come up for Festa Italian on Sunday. That Sunday. I'm going to try to make it up as well that Sunday. There's an awful lot going on, but I think they will try to come on up as well. They always enjoy the relationship that they've established with you, which is really unique. And I at St. Alphonsus I've been like 19 months now. You kind of want to recreate things, and I've thought, gosh, what happened in Butler with my parents that sparked this like love affair with them? What can I do at St. Al's? Because they come to Mass more frequently at St. Al's than they did up here when I was up here, and I don't know if there's anything specific. I think it's just a different relationship, and maybe my first assignment somewhere is unique as well. That my parents really grew in love with you as well, so they send their best, and hopefully we'll see many of you in a few weeks at Festa Italian. So, do we have RCIA members here in Butler with us tonight? If you are here, do you mind standing up? Father Harry, no one in RCIA. Oh, there we go. One. Oh, yeah, stand up, please. Yeah, all right, good. Let's go for our call. But Father Harry said to me, Kevin, got something for you. Catholic Life. Okay, what's the date? Give me the date. And he said, good. Good thing. Good. One problem. I said, what's the one problem? I won't be there. I won't be there. Not much of a problem, Father Harry. Maybe I'll just keep impersonating people the rest of this night. I won't talk at all about it. Do some Steve Neff, Father Steve Neff, a little bit. You remember Father Steve Neff? Yeah, of course. Steve, how are things going in Wildwood, PA? Good. They like the Blessed Mother in Wildwood, PA? Yeah. They like her son too. My grandma Neff, she was a saint. She used to feed the hobos. Steve, no one knows what hobo means anymore. She had 20 kids. She's something like 20 kids. There are some folks here from St. Alphonsus who are in our RCIA program. I saw two. I came up with one. So I saw him on the drive up. So, and then I saw Bob. So Bob, whomever's from St. Al's that is joining us tonight, please stand on up, if you could. Bob Kim. Okay, there's Bob Kim over there. Bob Kim. And over here, we have Mr. Tom Walker. Okay, so both of these gentlemen, we have between 6 and 8 people right now in our RCIA at St. Al's. We just started last week, kind of unofficially. And Bob in the back has been coming to Mass, raised Methodist, I believe, right? Or Presbyterian, one of those. Both. And Bob has been coming to Mass for years and years and years, and he was telling me his son was responsible for an Eagle Scout project on our campus that turned out quite nice, of where we moved our Mary statue. We got her refurbished, or as we like to say, she got Botox. And we moved her and we put up a nice little structure. Bob did it at one point. Bob said, when I would talk to a previous priest years ago and say, I come to Mass all the time, and I know when to stand, when to sit, when to kneel. What is it really? What it would take to become Catholic? And the priest said, you just want in the back door. So I'm going to call you Backdoor Bob. So now I call him Backdoor Bob. But no more back door, because he's here going through the RCA program after many, many years. And then Mr. Tom Walker, yes, Neil Walker's dad. Okay? Neil Walker's dad. But also Matt Walker, and also Sean Walker, and also Carrie Walker. So he has 4 children, not just one child, 4 children. And Tom was one, it was a year ago, we were talking about baseball. When I spoke here, and we were talking about, I told a joke about religious sisters, Sister Nancy and her friends going to a pirate game. Right? Well, this year we're not talking baseball. No playoffs for the Pirates. Now, I'm convinced the reason is, there are 2 reasons. Because the Pirates traded away Neil Walker, and they traded away Mark Melanson. 2 parishioners at St. Alphonsus. The Pirates failed to consult me before they made those decisions, trading them away. So, and Tom has said to me, as I've gotten to know him a little bit, Father Kevin, I was raised hard-shell Baptist. But I have 4 kids that all went through Catholic education. My wife, devout Catholic. Wherever we are, wherever we find ourselves on a weekend, we're going to Mass. I've been doing this for 42 years. It's about time I become Catholic. Right? So it's always exciting when you see people that are, and both of these men are just, and the other folks we have are just very excited to be able to come into full communion in the church, although I can tell you they are far more Catholic than many Catholics already in their participation in the life of the church and even the life of the liturgy itself. So beautiful and great that you guys were able to come up here with us this evening. I chose this topic of choosing the better part. It came to mind a few weeks ago when we heard that gospel, which I will read in a few moments, with Martha and Mary, and Jesus coming to these 2 sisters, their home. And through subsequent homilies of mine, it just kind of resonated with me, and even back to at the end of last school year, so June. Some of the things that were becoming relevant in our lives today, and I don't mean to have any answers here, but to just offer some reflections on those words, right, that Jesus speaks when he says, Mary has chosen the better part. And in our lives today, some of the challenges that we do face that perhaps are unique to any other time in at least our lifetimes. Anybody who's alive today. Right? The very unique challenges and how staying rooted with Christ has to be. There's no other option. There's no other person. There's no other place that we can go to other than Jesus to make some sense of life. No other person, no other thing that the world can give us that gives us that stability and that rock and that anchor in our lives, given the many, many distractions that are out there today. So I'll offer a couple things I wrote down, choosing the better part in relationships, in people, in conversation, in prayer. I'll start with one of my favorite spiritual writers, Father Richard Rohr, whom I believe the last time I was up here I based the talk on one of his books. And the foundation is of who we are as humans. The foundation of this talk, too. We must first be willing to admit the contradictions inside us and still let God love us in that partial state. Once we agree to see our own shadow side, our own foolishness, our own sin, and still know that God has not abandoned us, we become a living paradox that reveals the goodness of God. This is what the tax collectors and prostitutes had to do, and what changed them. Notice that the nice people were unwilling to change their minds about themselves or about God. Once we know that God lives inside our contradictions, and God's love is not dependent on our perfection, then other people's contradictions don't scandalize us or surprise us anymore. Therefore, we can be much more patient and compassionate with others because we have allowed God to do the same with us. I am a mass of contradictions, and yet I am also a saint. I am a very good person, and I am also a sinful person. I get it, and yet I oppose it too. Are both of those true? Yes. Both are always and forever true. And for some wonderful reason, that is what God loves. Faith is to personally surrender to such a mystery, not on a theoretical level, but right inside ourselves on a daily level. The poor prostitutes had no choice, and if we are honest, we don't either. That is what I mean by living yourself into a new way of thinking. Every change of mind is, first of all, a change of heart. And if the heart does not change, new ideas do not last long. Because forgiveness is not something God does. It is who God is. As they continued their journey, Jesus entered a village where a woman whose name was Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary, who sat beside the Lord at his feet listening to him speak. Martha, burdened with much serving, came to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me by myself to do the serving? Tell her to help me." The Lord said to her in reply, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and worried about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, and it will not be taken from her." In some ways, I think it is harder than ever to be holy. I think it's harder than ever to be pure because there are so many avenues to sin that we did not have, even within my lifetime. And now I'm 44, and now I find myself saying, back in the day, I'm 44, back in the day, and I'm talking about back in the day in my life. Not, and my parents, or I don't know any grandparents left alive, but their age, the greatest generation. I think there are so many avenues to sin. Those of you who know St. Augustine, well, you don't know him personally, well, maybe you do know him personally. Yeah. He was around 1,500 years ago, St. Augustine. And one of his big struggles was with purity, chastity, his human sexuality. He struggled with that all of his life. And one of the things he's famous for saying is, "Lord, make me pure, but not yet." In the seminary, there was, in the gathering room where there was a nice big flat screen TV, there was one guy, a few guys were watching television one evening, and another guy walked in, just a regular TV station, and a commercial on, I think it was for bras. And the guy walks in the door, and he sees what's on TV, and he goes, "Look, Augustine didn't even have to deal with that. And we do. I mean, come on." There are so many avenues. A click away. That's it. to sloth, laziness. How many times do you really have to watch a cat get scared out of a bucket of water on YouTube until it gets old? And all the goofy stuff that's on there. And we can get stuck there for an hour just looking at goofy stuff, just wasteful time. It's waste, sloth. Television shows these days that you wouldn't dare. Not this. Back in the day, it was you would ask a kid, a fellow classmate, "Do you get HBO? Do you get Showtime?" Because you know that those are the two stations that would have like racy stuff on there. Those are the stations that like anything goes. Not anymore. Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 11. Now Fox. You don't have to get HBO and Showtime anymore. And not after 10 p.m. 8 p.m., 7, any time of the day, radio or television. It's just so in front. Billboards. The sports page. Look at the ads on the sports page. It's so around us that I'm convinced it's harder than ever to be holy. We have to be more intentional than ever before to be holy. So who do we have to go to? Jesus. We have to. There's no other way. And we have to be more intentional than ever to go to Jesus. And I've said it before. It's whether we recognize it or not is what really scares me. That concerns me. Whether you even recognize the sinful nature or what is sin after all. But we've come so far from where we were, for good or for bad. I'm not saying better or worse. I'm simply saying we've come so far. My dad grew up in Bellevue. Many of you already know that. Have I told the story about Funny Guy? Remember that one? Oh, good. I can tell it again. My dad's mom was a widow in her 30s, and she had 7 children. And my one uncle, you might remember this, I called him Uncle Ringo. He was an alcoholic, and he died toward the end of my time here. We buried him. He was a troublemaker when he was a kid. He was tough. And evidently, one time he was really giving my grandmother a hard time. And the local priest, who grew up in Poland and was tough, he was tough. And when he was a kid, I'm sure it's the way that things were dealt with for him. When he heard that, well, no one called him Uncle Ringo at that time, but when my Uncle Ringo was this little kid and he gave my grandmother a hard time, he took him aside, took off his belt, and he hit him. He hit him. Right? He hit him. Now today we're going, you would have been going 50 years ago. And that's not that long ago. Right? He gave it to him. Continued to live his life. Good standing as a priest. Well respected, an author. Died a good death. Got a priest's funeral. You do that today, I'm done. Right? I'm done. I'm in jail. I'm in jail, and I'm done as a priest. I'm done. You do that today as a teacher, you're done. As a coach, you're done. Now, I'm not saying that what you did was right. I'm not saying that that's what I would do, although sometimes, if you're a teacher, you're tempted to grab some kids and just put them up against the locker. You're done, though. You're done for a career, you might be thrown in jail. Charges might be pressed against you. That's how far we've come in a short period of time. We don't tend to come to a meeting spot that makes sense. It's harder than ever in some ways to be a parent. Not in a physical sense, meaning our creature comforts are provided for. That's easier than before. You don't have, for the most part, to rely upon coal stoves, kids going out and chopping wood to put it in the stove. going to an outhouse. Anyone here grow up with an outhouse? There might be a few. There are a few, that's right. Okay, I don't mean more difficult in that way. Yeah, Grandma Shanor, you better believe she grew up. I love Grandma Shanor. I don't mean those ways. I mean in different ways where parents, you have to worry about things that my parents never had to worry about us getting into because they didn't exist, primarily with technology. Oftentimes, grandparents will come up to me and say, boy, I'm glad I don't have to raise young children today. It's tough being a kid today. Again, not in the creature comforts. I mean, we complain if we don't have air conditioning, like St. Alphonsus Church. It doesn't have air conditioning. Hopefully we'll get that soon. But kids, these things are at their fingertips. So any of you out there, you youngsters, it's hard. You don't have to worry about where your next meal's coming from. That's not hard. You don't have to worry about the clothes on your back. That's not hard. But to stay holy, to stay on track, I think it's harder than ever before in anyone's lifetime right now. Too often, way too often, kind of getting back to, do we even recognize what sin is anymore? And how to learn how to choose the better part. Too often I will be in the confessional with kids, and they will say whatever, you can tell them whatever their sins are, teasing my brother, not disobeying my parents, the same stuff. And I'll stop, I'll say, do you get to Mass? Way too often the answer is, sometimes, or if we're lucky, most of the time, or we're just really busy with lacrosse and soccer tournaments. And then I said, do you realize what missing Mass for not a good reason is? Do you realize what that is? It starts with an S and it ends in an N and there's one letter in between. They get it. They get it. And then they go on to say, it's not totally your fault because at 8 years old you're not driving yet. I know that. You don't have keys. If you are, that would be something else to see you driving around. But please, continue to ask your parents, Mom and Dad, can we get to Mass this weekend? Please. And it happens amongst our Catholic school students as well, unfortunately. It's greater amongst the public school students that you encounter this, no doubt. It's still way too much in our Catholic schools, amongst our Catholic school students. Way too much. Or that's the answer that I get. I met with a couple I'm doing their wedding in December. I met with them on Monday morning. And before meeting with them, I said, they live out of town, but they're getting married here in Wexford. And I said, well, this weekend's a big weekend. This past weekend was our Harvest Home weekend at St. Alphonsus. A couple of you came on down. It was good to see you. Big weekend, a lot of stuff. You know what that's like when you have festivals. And I said, well, it's going to be a busy weekend. Why don't you come to one of the Masses? I have all 4 of the Masses, and just introduce yourself to me after Mass. Nobody did that during the weekend. So Monday morning when we met, after talking to them for a little bit, I said to them, so, do you guys get to Mass this weekend? It was my shower. I had to get to the shower, and no. Okay, let me ask you guys, do you know what it is when you deliberately miss Mass? And the guy goes, sin? At least you know. Both went to Catholic schools. That's becoming more the norm these days. That's not becoming, it is. It's far more the norm than the exception. We're not choosing the better part so often. But I'll come back to it at the end as far as where there's hope. Because there has to be hope. There has to be. It's harder than ever in our lifetimes to be a priest. And I don't mean to say, woe is me. You know, Father Harry would never say that. Good, things are good, things are good, good, good. Good, good, it's all good, good, good. shape, too. So see, I can't do these impersonations in Wexford. No one gets them with Father Harry. No one gets them. And since I don't have a priest with me, I can't really. There's a priest that lives there, but he's not assigned to the parish, so people really don't know. So I can't do these things. A priest recently told me of 25 years. He said, I've been a priest 25 years and it's harder than ever. And I didn't think it would be harder to be a priest as I gained years of experience, but it's getting harder than ever. You're all aware, I hope, I know Father Harry has made it aware of the On Mission initiatives that are going to restructure how our diocese looks. There's no playbook for that. You know, the number of priests that are projected in the next 8 years is going to be half of what we have right now that are going to be active. And out of those, how many of those are able to lead parishes as pastors? There are many challenges and difficulties for all of us out there these days. And the norm looks like it's going to become like the setup is here already with one pastor for numerous parishes. That will continue to be a challenge, but we all need to play a part in that. We all need to choose the better parts in who we are as individuals and in who we are as church. Is anybody here familiar with the Pokemon Go game that was going on this summer? Okay, if you're not, you missed nothing. So I don't know the whole deal to it because I don't do it. I don't do that. It's a waste of time. But there were sites that you could go to on your phones to catch Pokemon, a fictitious character. You're catching something that doesn't exist. One of the sites was St. Alphonsus Parish, 201 Church Road, Wexford, PA, 15090. And on our campus, there were different spots that people would go to. One of them was in the cemetery. We have a cemetery on our campus. Okay. This was in June, right after school got out. I was going bonkers the month of June. My blood pressure, if you'd have taken it, would have been through the roof during the month of June, as people would constantly come on campus, oftentimes just in a car with the head down, looking to find the non-existent Pokemon, the virtual thing, and just drive around. And for a number of reasons, I wanted this to stop. Now, some folks said, oh, it's a chance to evangelize. Okay. Here were my encounters with those folks of all ages, men and women, driving, walking, sometimes on bicycle, at all hours of the day. How would you like to come home where I live at 201 Church Road? How would you like to come home at 11 o'clock at night and have about 20 people milling around right outside where you live in the parking lot? Like zombies. Like deadbeats. I'm sorry, folks. If any of you played it, I'm sorry. But that's what it looked like. A bunch of lost deadbeats. I stopped 3 young boys, they're all young teens, 13, 14 years old. And they were right outside of our front entrance. And the cemetery is right over to the right outside of the entrance. And I said, okay, fellas, you're here for the game. This is a Sunday. This is after the masses and after I had baptisms. I said, do you guys get to church this weekend? And I said, are any of you Catholic? 2 of them said yes. The kid in the middle said, I'm Jewish. The one said, I did get to church. The other one said, no, I didn't. And the kid in the middle, I said, did you go to synagogue? He goes, yes, I did. He said, you lying to me. You lying to me? He said, no, I did last night. I said, okay, good. You got prayer and you went to synagogue. That's great. He said, do you realize where you are right now? And I kind of gave it to him a little bit. I said, do you realize where you are? Do you know what this is? It's a cemetery. Yes. Do you know who's there? Like people who are buried there. Have you guys had anybody in your lives who have died? And 2 of them raised their hand. I said, well, if you haven't, you will. And you know what? Someday you will die too. and you will be buried in a cemetery. Have you come to a cemetery before? 2 of them said, yes, I have, for burials. I said, were you playing a game on your phone that time? They said, no. I said, I strongly suggest that you consider being here, if you're going to be here, to offer a prayer for the dead and for those who pray and cry for those loved ones that are buried here. Do you realize that most people come to a cemetery to cry, to pray, and to hope that they will see their loved ones who were buried here someday again? And that you're walking on a certain type of ground. And they got it. One kid said sacred. He got it right. I said, well, that gives me hope. So why don't the 3 of you say a prayer before you leave, right here? And I saw the 3 of them walk over to the edge of the cemetery, and they go... I don't think they were patronizing me. I think they were genuine. I don't know. That was during the month of June. During the end of June, we had a basketball camp at St. Alphonsus. We called it Hoops for Life. And we had some Butlerites come on down. I don't know if anybody's here tonight that came on down, but we had some of our Butler kids came on down. Yeah, we did. Carol Thompson's came down. 4 nights of great stuff, of well-done instruction. I had top-notch instructors. One of them has a Butler connection up here. Tom McConnell, who's the head women's coach at IUP. He married into the Leyland family. I don't know the Leyland family at all. I don't know. You guys don't know the Leylands either up here. But he married into the Leyland family, and Lisa didn't marry into the McConnell family. Tom married into the Leyland family. And Tom came down. He's the head women's coach at IUP for one evening. And then we had the head women's coach at Slippery Rock, Bobby McGraw. He came on down and spent an evening with us, and we had Pat Kavanaugh, who used to play for University of Pittsburgh basketball, was a parishioner at St. Al's. He was there with us. It was just a well-done camp where the kids came every night to learn a sport, to learn discipline. We prayed before, during, and after every session that we had. The speakers, 3 of the 4, spoke about their faith in their lives, in their athletic lives, in their family lives, and how their faith gets them through that. So during that same week, we had a bunch of deadbeats come on playing a Pokemon game, and we had a bunch of kids and adults that would come to listen to these speakers. Guess who chose the better part that week? Guess who chose the better part? So there is hope. There is hope, and there is good stuff going on. But we need to be more intentional than ever, especially with the next generations. Especially with our children and our grandchildren, and maybe some of you, your great-grandchildren. We have to. Otherwise, the path that we're going down, it's not a good one, let's face it. It's not. I had one couple that was on campus. I can't get off that Pokemon. I'm so glad it's done. We asked the company, we sent an email to the company saying, please take us off as one of your sites. It took them about 2 weeks, but they did take it off. I didn't want people coming onto campus when school was in session either. Just random strangers coming on, traffic coming on with our kids around. Just foolish. So they did take us off of their site. But I had one couple, probably in their 20s. One evening, it was dusk, so it was probably around 9:15 at night. And we're standing right in the parking lot. The rectory's right there, the church is right there. And I said, I stopped a few people, and they were one of the folks I stopped. I said, can I ask you, what is attractive about this? Like, what do you do? Do you realize you're on private property? Do you realize that? You're on private property. And they said, no, we just thought we were on a road. We said, we're on a road, dude. I said, well, this is a church. Oh, we didn't even realize it was a church. I just pointed to the steeple. So, are you lying? Are you that dumb? Or are your heads just buried in? Or your head's buried? That you're missing the world around you? That's what scares me about our kids. That they're missing the world around them, which means they will miss God as well. I've talked before about Alcoholics Anonymous and my experience with AA meetings, and how they are some of the most humble, and I will say holy encounters and experiences with Christ. And I had one at St. Alphonsus not too long ago. We have Alcoholics Anonymous meetings 2 evenings on our campus in the school cafeteria, Wednesdays and Thursdays. And there was one Thursday evening not too long ago where I was walking around campus, just checking out. It's one thing you learn. I learned from my dad and then certainly Father Harry. He drives around all these campuses at night just to make sure lights are on and things are okay, how things look at night, how things are at night. So I'm walking around our campus. It's probably an 8-acre campus. And making sure lights are on. And I came upon where the folks would park to go to AA. And there was one car with its lights on. So I made my way down. I had a t-shirt and shorts on. Made my way down into the cafeteria. And there was one gentleman, young guy, big, strong guy, young man, that was probably in his 20s or early 30s, that was in the middle of him talking. It was probably 20 men all gathered around in a circle. And to try to get 20 grown men together and share about their lives is really, really tough. And this man was sharing about his struggles. I mean, it was down to the ground humility. And the part of his talk that I walked into, he was just bashing the church with choice words. But they did not offend me at all because they were so genuine and honest about his relationship with the church and how angry he is with the church. And he grew up Catholic. And how his younger brother and younger sister are buried. They're laid to rest in the mausoleum that we have right at our cemetery at St. Alphonsus. And how his relationship with Jesus is just strained. And with priests, he hates priests. And just, again, you know the words that he was using to describe the whole situation. And I just stood there. There was no way I was going to interrupt. You don't interrupt somebody when they're in the middle of disclosing some of their deepest, darkest. You don't do that. So it was probably about 8 minutes of him just unloading. And then everyone said, thanks. We'll just say his name is John. Thanks, John. Thanks, John. And I said, excuse me, guys. I'm the pastor here. I'm the pastor here, and I just want to let you know there's a VW out here with its lights on. License plate AKV 123. 1234. VW AKV 1234. Guess who raised his hand? That's me, he said. That's me. And everyone just busted out laughing. All the guys, it was just the perfect moment. The perfect moment of levity amidst the darkness and amongst the heaviness. And as he and I walked out together, he said, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I said, there is no apology necessary. If more people were as honest and humble as you, our churches and our confessionals would be filled. Every weekend. Every weekend. What the names of your brother and your sister, I will say a prayer for them tonight. And he showed me where they're laid to rest. That's choosing the better part, this man did that evening. That is a holy moment. That is just a beautiful example of modern day prostitutes and tax collectors sitting with Jesus. I mean, I'm not comparing me, I'm not Jesus. You know. But the prostitutes and the tax collectors and the sinners versus the Pharisees that seem to be neat and clean. Who is holier? Who is choosing the better part? Who is experiencing God at a deeper level in those moments? Clearly, it was that young man. In all of his struggles, in all of his sin, in all of his challenges. Choosing the better part in Catholic education. As many of you know, I did not go to Catholic schools. I didn't go to Catholic schools. If I had children, I would send them to Catholic schools today. I'm very lucky that we have an excellent grade school here at Butler Catholic. Truth and love is experienced at Butler Catholic. And I'm glad that I was a part of that for a few years. At St. Alphonsus, which has been around for a long, long time, well, both Bob and Tom, their children both went through St. Alphonsus. And they'll both tell you, that, and their children are all older now, high school and older, will all tell you, we are glad we sent our children to have that foundation in Catholic schools for the rest of their lives. Well, Sister John Ann has her critics. Everybody does that's in that type of position. But I can tell you she's teaching truth there, and discipline and love. She is. And it's a culture that's established here in Butler, and it's a culture that we're trying to regain at St. Alphonsus. And I like the way that we're starting our school year so far at St. Al's. Amidst the craziness of life, Catholic education, and we've seen the numbers of children in Catholic schools have declined in this diocese for years. Families are smaller, fewer people go to church. What does that mean? Fewer kids in Catholic schools. But they are absolutely essential to the life of the church and the life of society. Absolutely essential. What has happened, unfortunately, with Catholic education over the years, in some spots, not here in Butler, in some spots, is we've lost our Catholicity. We've forgotten why we are there as a Catholic school. And we've become overwhelmed by what subjects these days. Parents, you know, what subjects are the two most important subjects that every parent, not every parent, but most parents, that's what they're most good, that better have the top-notch program at that school, no matter if it's private or public school. Science and math. Why? I ask the kids this question. They get it. So that I can be successful someday. What does that mean to be successful? So that I can make money someday. That's not why we exist primarily as Catholic schools. It's not. Our primary focus of Catholic schools is to get people to heaven. Is to get souls. Eternal life. And to be able to live out a Christian life on earth. That's primary. To teach truth and discipline and love. That's first and foremost. I tell folks, and I tell kids, in this area, in this demographic, you will be just fine academically. You will be just fine. As long as you apply yourself and the God-given talents that you have in your school, in your profession, whatever you end up going into. You will always have food on your table. You will always have a roof over your head. You will always have clothes on your back. You will be just fine. But I can't say the same thing about your spiritual lives. I wish I could. Prove me wrong. Most of you will be very successful, and if you lose a job, you'll fall on your feet. You'll find something else. You may have to struggle for a little bit, but you will fall on your feet. You will be fine. You won't starve. Just make good decisions. But will you be an active member of your parish, continue to receive the sacraments, and fall more in love with Jesus Christ as you get older? That's what I'm most concerned about. Unfortunately, the answer is not yes right now. It's not. And I think Catholic education is going to play a huge part. Even though the numbers might get smaller, I'm hoping for a refocus of people's energies and priorities. Hope and pray that through Catholic education they will recognize the truth, the discipline, and the love that they receive there. That is really supposed to be a support to what goes on in a home. We find that to be a challenge too sometimes. So often I will get people come up to me and say, "Oh, Father," especially at a graduation party, "Father, I went to Catholic schools from kindergarten all the way through college. It was fantastic. I ended up meeting my wife at college, I ended up networking people when I went to Notre Dame, and I had people all over the country that I knew, and I ended up getting my job. That's how I got my job. It's fantastic." I said, "You know what?" I said, "That's absolutely awesome." I said, "But through those years of Catholic education, have they helped you grow in more love with Jesus Christ and His Mother Mary? Have they helped you become an active member in your parish and grow a bigger part of the community, rooted in the heart of Jesus Christ, so that someday you will get to heaven, and your wife will get to heaven, and your children will get to heaven? By this time, he's walking 30 feet away from him. He doesn't know what to do. But that's why we exist primarily as Catholics and in Catholic education. We need to refocus. And I think part of this On Mission initiative is to refocus why we exist as Catholic institutions, as Catholic schools. Choose the better part in prayer, which I will conclude with. This is from Father William Barry, who's a Jesuit priest. Prayer is a matter of relationship. Intimacy is the basic issue, not answers to problems or resolutions to be better. Many of life's problems and challenges have no answers. We can only live with and through them. Problems and challenges, however, can be faced and lived through with more peace and resilience if people know that they are not alone. A man's wife will not return from the dead, but the pain is more bearable when he has poured out his sorrow, his anger, and his despair to God, and has experienced God's intimate presence. Choose the better part in prayer. This is from Anne Voskamp, who's an author. God doesn't need us to praise him, but he needs us to praise. What else keeps us from bitterness? Words praising Christ or wrangling to be praised ourselves. I'm not sure how my life stands, how my inner and outer walls stand, how I make a home. Unless we make it a habit to give thanks, we habitually give our family grief. Unless we consistently speak praise, we consistently speak poison. Unless we are intentional about giving God glory throughout the day, our days unintentionally give way to grumbling. It is in praising a Savior in all things that we are saved from discouragement in all things. Last week's gospel, does anyone remember what it was just a few days ago? If Father Harry read the long version, Brother Anthony probably did. The long version had the story of the prodigal son. Prodigal son. We've heard it a million times, those of us who have been around. If you haven't been around, like me, who've been around since back in the day, you will hear it if you continue to come to Mass. The most beautiful part for me in the prodigal son story, and the most beautiful part of the whole choosing the better part, is that no matter what we choose, God remains with open arms. When the son says, I don't deserve to be called your son, what does the father do? Just come back. And the son says it again, I do not deserve it. What does the father do? Just come back. And when the son, who always obeyed his father, gets upset, what does the father do? He goes out to see that son and says, come. No matter what we choose, the good part or the not so good part, no matter what our loved ones choose, the good part or not so good part, no matter what the Pokemon Go people choose, God remains. The Father's there with his arms open, continuing to welcome us back. Let us pray. Father of all mercies, your mercy endures forever, and for that we thank you from the center of our hearts. We are so blessed and so grateful for you as the giver of so many great gifts that we have. I thank you this evening for bringing me back to this community that I love so dearly in Butler, and for being able to share just a few brief moments of prayer, of laughter, being able to share you in our midst where 2 or 3 are gathered. We ask your blessings upon us the rest of this evening. Keep us safe. May we have a restful night. May we wake again tomorrow to praise and worship you through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
Thank you.
Well, for those of you who weren't with us when Father Kevin was here, now you know who he is. Good stuff. It's always feel kind of inadequate after a good talk like that. It's almost like we need a couple of minutes to reflect. It's like after you see a good movie. I saw Sully last weekend, and while the credits are rolling, you can kind of absorb it and let it sink in. I meant to mention the names of, I know some of our RCIA people that are here tonight, and I forgot to do it. Melissa is here, Aaron is here, I think Dawn is here. So I apologize, I meant to mention that earlier. Our next speaker, we won't have a Catholic Alive program in October because we'll be having a series of meetings on the Church Alive. As Kevin said, we have a lot of important stuff to talk about in October at each of the parishes. However, we will gather again in November, and our speaker will be the Very Reverend Thomas Coons. And the topic is yet to be announced. Part of our evenings are very informal. They're purposefully designed that way. We want to laugh a little bit. We want to eat a little bit. So we will do that in just a moment or so here. We invite everybody to stay. There's some tremendous food here. So please eat. I guess this is St. Michael's Parish Hall, parish of great Italian heritage. I guess I should say what, mangia? Is that the Italian word to eat? Is that right? Mangia? Mangia. The Irish word to eat is Guinness. So please stay afterwards and eat. And please get out your song sheets as we close again with song. Thanks for coming safely.
Do we stand? Hang with us for 3 verses of Christ Your Longing for light, we wait in darkness. Longing for truth, we turn to you. Make us your own, your holy people. Light for the world to see. Christ be our light, shine in our hearts, shine through the darkness. Christ be our light, shine in your church, gathered today. Longing for peace, our world is troubled. Longing for hope, many despair. Your word alone has power to save us. Make us your living voice. Christ be our light, shine in our hearts, shine through the darkness. Christ be our light, shine in your church, gathered today. Longing for